There have been many iconic movie franchises throughout cinematic history. Mine personally being the MCU, Star Wars, and Harry Potter. Those are the franchises that made me such a good person. There are just so many to choose from, but there have also been many failed franchises as well, just trying to cash in on the brand. So when I heard Lord of the Rings was known to be one of the greatest movie franchises of all time, I had to do the research myself and see if it was all that it was cracked up to be. Unfortunately, I was left disappointed and upset. I felt nothing but emptiness and confusion. In this video, I'm going to review the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I'm going to review it with an open-minded and unbiased perspective. This review will be split off into 3 sections. And just remember, it's my opinion, and if you don't like that, then please leave and don't be toxic.
This story here is insane. Aragorn is now black.
But anyway, let's get into this review. Let's get into the story. If I'm going to be completely honest, I could not remember a majority of what happened in these movies. It was just too slow-paced and boring. There was so much going on to the point of me losing interest. I had to look some of this information up while I was on my phone. All I can remember was that these rings are given to people for no reason at all, and then the villain, Sauron, has the most powerful ring of all time. That's not explained either. Then the movie just opens with a big CGI battle with no setup at all. We have no idea who anybody is or why this battle is happening in the first place. The worst part is Sauron loses and dies by having his finger cut off. I'm sorry, what? That's all it takes to kill this guy? I guess we know who would win in a fight if you put him against Voldemort or Thanos. And then the guy who killed Sauron dies like a bitch in the most anticlimactic way possible. No heroic sacrifice like in a good movie, Avengers Endgame.
Iron Man.
How are we as an audience supposed to care about any of this when you cram all of this exposition in just 3 minutes? Then these 2 random characters fight for the ring? I don't know why this scene was in the movie. It just felt like padding and it didn't go anywhere. That's kind of how this whole trilogy is. Just irrelevant details to waste time. Since I mentioned Star Wars earlier, Tony Gilroy's political spy thriller Andor is how you do slow and boring. It was such a slog getting through the first movie. The characters just walk to places and talk a lot. That's it. And then Gandalf and Boromir die, then the good guys lose. And I could care less. All this happens in one movie. Compare this to a good movie like Avengers Infinity War, where we had a decade of build-up and a cohesive story well planned out. It felt like a punch to the gut seeing our heroes fail. This movie doesn't do that. I already forgot about what I was talking about. The second movie isn't much better. I would say it's even more forgettable than the first one. It's more talking with no substance. I get the books are boring, but Percy Jackson could have at least tried to add some kind of quirk and flavor in there. This reminds me a lot of the Star Wars prequels.
I haven't felt you this tense since we fell into that nest of gun dogs.
You fell into that nightmare, Master, and I rescued you, remember?
Tell, don't show.
Yes.
All I know is that this movie is where Frodo meets Smeagol. He's just introduced in the movie for no reason at all. He's there to make the plot go forward. Gandalf comes back in the most forced way possible, and then there's a big fight at the end where the good guys win, and then it ends with a cliffhanger with no post-credit scene. I would honestly say Two Towers is the worst of the trilogy. You could skip it and not miss anything. The third movie gets a little better since stuff is going on, but by the time something interesting happens, I'm already asleep because it's 4 hours. 4 long, boring hours I'm not getting back. More walking and talking, too much unnecessary exposition without showing us anything. Saruman dies, Frodo gets stabbed by a spider, Aragorn talks to ghosts, more talking. 4 hours later, a big CGI battle happens. Frodo goes to a volcano, copying Star Wars. Smeagol bites Frodo's finger off. Smeagol dies. The ring is destroyed, and then everyone lives happily ever after. Aragorn becomes king of the world, and Frodo leaves his friends, which is supposed to be an emotional moment, but I stopped caring because it took way too long. Compare this to a good movie like Avengers Endgame, when we get to see Tony's funeral right after the exciting final battle. 10 years of payoff. That's how you do an emotional ending. I noticed these movies came out at the same time as those atrocious box office flop Star Wars prequels, and I realized Percy Jackson was just trying to play catch up with George Lucas, when he should have just taken his time. Now the story feels rushed and incomplete. Overall, I'm gonna have to give the story a 4.5 out of 10. Now, onto the characters. If I'm gonna be completely honest, I could not remember any of the characters in these movies except for Frodo, Gandalf, and Smeagol. How am I supposed to differentiate the characters when everyone looks the same? There's also way too many characters for just 3 movies. Of course, Percy Jackson was just cashing in on the brand as usual. Zero vision and zero care for the audience. Frodo has no character at all. He's just the blank slate anyone can picture themselves as. He has no flaws, and he's pretty much the Mary Sue before the toxic incels used the term to hate on well-written female characters. There's a reason why Harry Potter is still remembered to this day. Gandalf is the typical wise old man cliche we've seen countless times. He has no personality, and just like Qui-Gon and Uncle Ben, I felt nothing when he died. Especially when he comes back immediately in the next movie. He's just an exposition generator. Dumbledore would solo Gandalf and his squad of hairy manlets. Aragorn's character is he's a good guy and he has a sword. Bland, just like Luke Skywalker, until the Last Jedi made him interesting. Another Gary Stu with no interesting personality. Him becoming king was forced because we as an audience know he wasn't worthy for it. It's just given to him, and now he gets to rule the world. Legolas is just stoic and boring. If he wasn't there, nothing would change the plot. He's just as bland as Obi-Wan from The Phantom Menace.
The Queen's wardrobe, maybe, but not enough for you to barter with.
Gimli is the comic relief and very offensive towards the midget community. His character is, he's fat, short, and loud. Boromir, I couldn't remember anything about him except the one meme. He turns evil and then he just randomly dies. Smeagol makes no sense in these movies. He's sometimes good and evil for no reason at all. Just more shit to pad out the story. The CGI is also really bad, just like Jar Jar from the Star Wars prequels. Sauron is just evil. That's it. There's no personality, just evil. Compare this to a good villain like Thanos with a realistic motivation we can all relate to. The orcs are a racist stereotype. Their language is literally called black speech. What the fuck, Tolkien? How did Tolkien get away with this? These books are still being sold? I don't even know who else is in these movies. Overall, I'm gonna have to give the characters a 5.5 out of 10. Now, onto what matters the most, in my opinion. The action.
Assemble.
The thing is, when I watch a superhero movie, I just want to see someone get punched really hard. By the time any action happens in these movies, it's too late. I lost interest and I'm already dead asleep. It seems the budget was wasted on the beginning of the first movie and the end of the third movie, because everything else is the actors slapping props at each other. The characters fight mindless enemies and there's no stakes to the plot whatsoever. Compare this to a good movie like Age of Ultron, where the Avengers fight these mindless CGI robots, but the story is so good you actually feel something from each punch. These movies didn't want to do that. The third movie's final battle was so undeserved and underwhelming. All these characters with no backstory fighting these generic evil goons. Just like the final fight in Revenge of the Sith, no emotion, just soulless eye candy to get the fanboys to clap like seals. I'm gonna have to give the action a 4 out of 10. The thing is, just like the DCEU, Lord of the Rings could have been a successful franchise with many sequels on the way. Sadly, we were given a rushed and undercooked product.
It's raw! It's fucking raw!
If only Percy Jackson didn't force everything into a trilogy. I know he tried to do damage control with the Hobbit trilogy, but it's not enough lore to fit in just 6 movies. Instead of copying Star Wars, Jackson should have had an 8 to 10 year plan of TV shows and movies to hype us up for the big team up. Sadly, this trilogy was a colossal disappointment, and I don't plan on rewatching anytime soon or ever again. There's a reason why Marvel and Star Wars are still mass producing shows to this day. Overall, I'm gonna have to give Lord of the Rings A 4.87 out of 10. These movies needed a director with a vision. Warner Bros., get your shit together and let a good director cook.